Hey, welcome to the show, friends. I'm your host, and today I am talking with somebody that it's blow your mind. This guy's going to blow your mind. He doesn't just manage schools. This is a guy that systematically engineers educational ecosystems, okay, from the ground up. You're going to hear some success stories, but you're also just going to be gobstopped. Dr. Jeff Horton, Superintendent, Southwest Metro Intermediate School District 288. This guy loves finding puzzles to solve, gaps to occlude, and I think hills to conquer. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Love your
I
show.
You literally are one of the most respected leaders that I've ever worked with, and I don't think most people really know that you're even sitting out there. But also, uh, it's just amazing because I don't know, you're this millennial. I learned that you're a millennial, and I'm not
Thanks.
even quite sure what is that like?
Being a millennial, it's confusing. Other people think we're probably very confusing. We're a little different than the Gen Xers. But we're taking over the workforce. So here we are, and I think that being a millennial superintendent, uh, it affords me the opportunity. I'm kind of a tweener. I'm right on the kind of edge of millennials and Xers a little bit. So I bring a little bit of that X piece, and I think I can understand the Gen Xers a little bit. But also, I think we bring some of that more. There's been so much technological innovation and just different type of thinking on how do we approach problems. And I think that being a millennial has kind of helped me lean into that a little bit more. And that's been exciting.
Well, I think you are one of 2 millennials that I brought on, Dr. Jermaine Worrell out of Savannah State. Yeah, so, I'm gonna do my best to just try to understand your world, and yeah, you can do your best because you're that tweener, but I wanna really just talk about this. You inherited a district. You went from a large regional, educational organization to a small rural,
Yeah.
okay, small rural. And I watched that transition, and I was just like, what is going on? I didn't understand this place because I had done some work in that surrounding area, statutory operating debt, declining enrollment,
Yeah.
and large community distrust. 3 different communities, and trying to figure out, where any place central is going to be was a great challenge. So most superintendents would have shied away from that, and maybe just even just focused on, I'll take the job, but for damage control. How did you approach that differently? Why did you take that on?
You know, I guess when we go through leadership classes, a lot of times they ask you kind of define yourself as a leader. And I think when you're an aspiring superintendent, aspiring leader, you come up with your mission statement that your class is supposed to say. But once you start doing the work and really get into it, you really kind of continue to hone that, I think. And if I were to think about why I do what I do, I believe that all education systems, regardless of size, location, all students deserve a great education. And I will say that I do think that we're losing the communication battle in greater Minnesota, greater rural areas. And that is disheartening. And superintendents and leaders need to, I say this when I speak to people too. We shouldn't always be chasing the bigger district, bigger paycheck, or whatever it may be, the clout that might come with that. There is really important work to do in every district across the state, every district across the country. And I just really want to go places where I can help make a difference.
Yeah, you're not somebody that's going to come in and put a 10-year plan together and begin this incremental. You're a large scale change artist. You're a transformational artist. So what you did in a couple of years, I mean, walk me through your decision making process. That, again, it wasn't about incremental fixes. You were not managing, you were taking a look at the leadership landscape. So walk me through your kind of, what do you use, your decision matrix, and how do you go about thinking and then doing?
I In all truth and honesty, I think one of the most important things I do when I come into a district, it's really to listen. And you'll hear a lot of leaders say that, but it's not a survey. It's literally going out and sitting down at the dinner table with people. It's going out and going to a township meeting where only 6 people are there. But I'll tell you, you go to a township meeting somewhere, you get a real pulse on what's happening, the feelings locally. Um, and how do you like in my current district in the first 100 days, I did 1,000 engagements. Now, people would say, "Oh, I don't have time to do that." You need to make time to do that because that's you're building connections, and it can't be just it has to be real, it has to be authentic, and you have to understand where that are, and I think it's really taking the community voice and helping to bring coalition among their voices. So I think what I really am doing more than anything is I listen and I help with them to architect a plan to help them achieve what they want to do. But we're going to ground it in research too along the way. And that's an important piece that comes after that initial listening is we have to help educate and do the research.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, like you said, so common. The first 100 days, you everybody's doing a listening tour, but what actually happens and the traction that you build after that listening tour, I think is the mark of a leader. So nearly 25 years, this millennial folks, yes, nearly 25 years in education, classroom teacher, special ed director, really got a heart for special ed. As a brother to a Down syndrome sister, I love the fact that you are leading where you are at right now. Principal, assistant superintendent, superintendent. Wow. And now taking on this intermediate district, which oftentimes, what are there, two in the state right
So we
now?
have four actually.
4 in the state, and most people don't really understand how they work. But I would say over the course of that 25 years, that's not career progression. It's systematic. You're building upon your learning and taking on greater challenges each step along the way. I'm going to ask along that timeline, was there a role that taught you something about systems thinking? Because when I think of a system leader, boom, you are the persona that pops up that completely changed your mindset and how you approach it.
I think it's something I've been interested going all the way back to when I was, gosh, teenager to early 20s. I think I could probably point back to that in my learning. And Um, one of the things that brought me joy, I was a little crazy. I was a little bit overachiever in school. So I used to do about 20 credit semesters in my undergrad. Um, and then I would do like 12 plus credits over the summer. And I would take classes at universities all over the place. And I would drive from different places, and I would organize and create a plan to help do that. So I would drive out to the Twin Cities to do a class at St. Thomas, then be off at Century Community College, then be over in Wisconsin taking a class, and I'd be doing all these things. And there was this just I really enjoyed just the creation of the plan and like how can I like make this work. And I saw that play out there. I in a former life I used to try to be athletic and putting together that type of nutrition plan and that. And I think so. I think I just kind of had some of that. And as I moved into leadership, and I didn't pick. I did not think I was going to be a superintendent. I thought maybe assistant principal my last couple of years, like maybe that would happen for me. Other people seem to just find things in
Mm.
me that I didn't see, and there was just amazing people that I was able to be around that encouraged me to try taking different steps and to support me through all those different learnings. And I think that's they saw something in me that I didn't quite understand was maybe fully there. And I did not plan on being a super. I never in my wildest dreams thought I'd be a superintendent. I don't think I ever thought I'd be a principal. So
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I think it's what ensues in life. It's not necessarily what you pursue, isn't it? Because you've got just this large army of people that are watching you, and many of them just seeing your potential. And that is also our gift in education back to others, is being able to see that potential. Be that person that sees your performance as that big P. It's that little P of potential minus all those things that get in your way, the interference, the stuff that sticks in your head going, "Well, I don't know if I'd ever have the skills or the confidence or the you don't understand my background," but you've been able to just blow through all of that. Accidentally or intentionally, it doesn't matter. You are where you're at and you're doing what you're doing.
yeah, and I'll give a shout out to my millennials out there. Millennials are they they're passionate people. They want to feel passionate about the work they're doing, right? And so I do when I taking on some of education's biggest issues. That is a passion of mine, and that drives me and that motivates me. You balance that out with growing up with Rocky series in your life and things like that, like how that it builds the drive, the heart, the whole story, and there you go. So I gotta be honest, I love Rocky. Rocky 4, I watched that, I think, before about every every game I ever played.
Is that the Russian with the
Oh,
Russian?
yeah, the big
Oh,
Russian guy?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
that is I will tell you
I
in the
must break you.
I actually played we were doing some tough community work, and we were in a meeting. I actually played a clip from Rocky. I did that, and I showed that to the group. It was one of the more recent ones. Um, and they were going through some tough times and trying to figure things out, and I threw that up there, and we talked about that, and I think there's some great things to take away from that that I actually try to lead in my life too. So
Yeah.
if I was going to say something that influenced me a lot, Rocky movie series actually did quite a bit.
And you probably have a Yo Adrian out there someplace too that, got your back. Got your back. Hey, let's talk about the intermediate. You're essentially running, a shared services model, right? For education?
Yeah, a lot of what a large portion of what we do is that just shared services model where uh, we have 19 school districts that we work with, and they span from greater Minnesota to suburban to rural, large, small, and so yeah. And so how can you look at education on a regional basis and make a difference for all learners?
Yeah,
And
what's the business case there? Because I love just jamming with you because you have this entrepreneurial mindset to you. So what's the business case, the ROI to member districts?
That's a great question. I think that's what we're defining right now in our work. Because I'm just starting year 2 right now, and so I think our process is helping to kind of redefine what is that return on investment and what are we looking for, and gaining clarity around what are you looking for in a return on your investment, and what does that mean, and how do you do that in a political dynamic that we have, and how do you do that in a world of declining enrollment and lower birth rates, when actually we have the opposite problem. Our enrollment's going up in our programs, and so you have this dichotomy of how do you figure that out across such a great vast region. And I think that's partly what excited me about the work is it didn't feel easy to try to balance all of that. But if we can figure out a way to do that together with the community, with all the 19 districts, like amazing people in the room and just super great leaders. Like, if there's a place that we can solve some of our toughest problems, education, this is a space where we can do it. We have some of our best leaders in the meetings I get to attend. And if we can harness and focus that team's energy to do whatever it is that we kind of figure out needs to be done, wow, like how impactful could we be?
Mm. Again, that just kind of that quiet presence. Maybe best kept secret are these intermediate school districts. You're kind of operating in a market with almost no competition, right? If it you've got this playbook. My guess is year 2, Jeff has a playbook. Guaranteed. Jeff has a he's running an offense. He can see an end that is not even in mind. It's very determined. So that work, that position at Southwest Metro, how do you build that as essential rather than just convenient for your member districts? How are you building the essentiality, right, of your goods and services?
To me, it really kind of comes down to process. And whether we talk about working in greater Minnesota, making a transition to a smaller school, whether we're talking about working a large system, um, it's very much the same processes. And I think sometimes people lose sight of that regardless of your system, it's just scaling it to size, but a lot of the steps and processes are the same. Um, and so I kind of have a general recipe, to be honest with you.
Mhm.
And so, you know, the first cup, the first dash of something is we got that listening session, right? But it has to be really authentic. It has to be intentional. So I often do like a 3-2-1, like give me 3 positives about the organization, give me 2 opportunities for growth. And if we could accomplish one goal together this year, what would it be? And that's kind of what we start out with. And I actually like to bring in some AI tools with that to help analyze that information. But also you have to report back out, because so oftentimes we collect information, but we don't get it back to people. And they have to feel like they're being listened to and that they understand how their input was in. And a traditional survey doesn't do that. But I think
Right.
with the modern AI tools, they're more interactive, and you can turn things around quicker, and you don't lose the energy. And that's the key, is you have
Mm.
that energy going in the community, and you have to constantly be gauging that. And I think that's the art piece of it. But once you get done with that 100 days, then for me, it's about, now what does the research say? So we did 6 needs assessments. We did one in communications, We did one in teaching and learning, and we looked at not only within our organizations, but we looked across 19 districts. We looked at their MTSS structure, looked at their strengths, weaknesses, areas of growth. We looked at safety and security. We looked at facilities. We looked at our finances. How are we operating as finances? Our human resources system. And we took all of that information, and again, using some AI tools, I'm leaning on my millennial side a little bit here. We use that to help take massive amounts of data and to quickly turn it around and share it back and give that information to people and then engage them on asking what their thoughts were about that.
Yeah.
And they're shaping this vision. So the whole time we're seeing this happening and we're starting to set the system up to because we can kind of see where they're going while they're going having the actual experience. We kind of got two things happening there. Um, then I think you just have to ask your community, what is it that what do you want to graduate from your system to be? And what are those skills? And we went through that process and um, we took all that data and we shared that in and then we engaged the public on in the strategic planning. And really that's kind of set the roadmap for year two. So when I sat down and we did my superintendent goals for the year, the board looked at me and they're like, well, these are intense goals. Are you sure you want that? And I said, this is what you told me you wanted as a community. This is what you've adopted as a board. This is where you want to go. I have reset our system to align to what you've told me you want. Now, in year two, you're going to feel a little bit of, you're going to have some change happening, right? And that's,
Yes.
you
You're
have,
the honeymoon is
yeah,
over, right?
yeah,
The
and
you came
that's
in first year and you made some drastic decisions.
yep,
Most would wait until year 4 to make that happen. But again, the students in the community that you serve deserve you to be
exactly.
making decisions that are mission central.
They are, and that's what we anchor from is those decisions. This is what you told us you wanted, and so now we can kind of point we can point back to that, right? Here's what the research says. Here's what you said. I and let's well, how can we support you to get there, right? So that's a little bit different conversation. We're still going this way, but how can I support you to get there? And most people love the end vision. It's
Mhm.
just the discomfort of getting there, right? And
Right,
so
right.
often we hear people sacrificing to feel comfortable in the moment and they want to feel good in the moment, they sacrifice the long-term gain, right? Rather than maybe some delayed gratification. This is where millennials are a little tougher and our Gen Zs, right? Like we're just used to that, right? We need a instant gratification for what's going to come in a year or two. And that is the art, I think, of all of it is helping people move through that adult change theory model to get to year 3 and 4 where they're really starting to see the big results. They'll see you got to get some strategic wins in there in year two.
Right, right. Right. Final systems question from the systems whisperer. You know, you've really just proven, I think, that educational challenges, they're not permanent, right? They're design problems. You're the design guy. You're just going to redesign. They're design problems to solve. They're not permanent, but there are a lot of leaders sitting in offices that have superintendent placards that kind of have told their brains that they have permanent problems. And we're just gonna continue to manage each day. So maybe for those leaders looking at their own impossible, maybe it's student populations, maybe it's just the spirit of education as it is today, or the spirit of politic as it is today. What's your framework? What's your mindset for turning those systemic barriers or that mindset into your competitive advantage? If you were to kind of distill all that you've been able to do, you've given us some really good things today. Follow the energy, a three-step process, kind of provoke the conflict and friction because it must happen. But yeah, if we were to distill that down into one little pep talk for somebody that is looking at a problem, not sure if they can face it, how would you coach them through that?
You know, um, that's a really wonderful question, and to try to keep that short will be hard, but I will give it my best shot.
Taking somebody that
Think
sees
yeah.
as a victim and moving it into reshaping this as your competitive advantage.
I had a superintendent once tell me that you have to lead and not be afraid to lose your job.
Wow.
And that's scary, right? Superintendents have families, they're people. Um, and that that is scary. But at the same time, we're hired to do the job and the work. And if you're going to step into this space, I think you have to have the courage to walk into those tough moments. At your worst moment, how good can you be? At your toughest moment, how great can you be? And you have to rise and do the prep work before you get there to be
Hmm.
successful in that moment. And so there's been some really tough decisions I've been made, and I've had to put it on the line. And sometimes you try to get everything set up, but it ultimately you may not be the decision maker in that space. But I truly believe in the goodness of people, and I believe that if the average person is given good information, real information, they're going to probably make the right choice as a whole, as a group of people. You grab
True.
100 people, you give them, you're going to have your early adopters, you're going to have the people always going to say no, right? You've got your people that show me this will work and I'll do it. You got some people that I'll follow along because I'm going to follow the system or whatever. You got to get to that tipping point. And so and that's the
Mm.
communication piece.
Mm.
So I think everyone can do it, but you have to be willing to stand up in those tough moments, and you have to be willing to know when to push and say, we've got what we need, and I'm going to push through the discomfort to lead us to where we need to be for students in a few years.
Folks, that's the core. That's the core that drives this individual, and you haven't even the song is "You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet" is just playing in my head right now. To have that attitude is usually what an interim superintendent brings after retirement. Like you put your keys on the table. You hear from the old wizened ones. You put the keys on the table at the board meeting and you say, "I'm going to continue to lead until you take my keys away." Right? And go ahead, take my but to have a millennial leader, right, that has a young family, to have that level of being so in love with the mission that they have the courage to be disliked. Maybe disliked to the point of you've got to shop around again. Dude, that puts you in a differentiated class. You've proven that the best educators, they don't just inspire students. I think that's easy to do. You redesign the infrastructure that makes student success inevitable. You are building systems that are just success is going to be inevitable. So I just applaud, absolutely applaud. And any last wisdom for any struggling system leader out there? And then we're going to have a little fun with you.
It's always, it's sometimes you said, well, when you come in, you got the honeymoon phase, right? But what you do right out the gate in your first 100 days will define what happens to you over your next 6 years. You have to be ready to go right away because that's what you need to be able to look back to, point to, and ground to. Because what you do in those first 100 days is going to show back up in years 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So you need to be very intentional. And if you're in the middle of a system and things aren't going well, I think sometimes we have to stand up and just say, guess what? I know we've been doing this and I know we've been heading this down this direction. We need to take a timeout
Mhm.
and let's step back for a second and let's pause, and I'm going to own some things. And I think that that
Wow.
does a lot. You need to say as a leader on the behalf of our organization, as a leader, even if it's not all you, you're the figurehead. I'm going to own this, and I'm going to say I'm sorry that we're not getting what we need to do. Can you step into this space and help me? And here's what I'd like to try to do. I want to get out and listen to some people. I want to do some research. I want to try to see if we can't figure this out together. And I
Boom.
think when I've walked into a space, even if I was inheriting previous decisions, I've apologized and I've owned it. Even though I wasn't even involved with the decision. It was something I had nothing to do with or it predates me. I think that goes a long way with people. And I think if you can go out and do that and get side by side, table side conversations with people, which takes a lot of time and effort, it's amazing how people respond to you because inherently people are good people. They want good things for community and kids, but you have to be able to work through that. So when you're in the middle of if you're a year five soup, yeah, you've been there a while, right? And maybe things have shifted a little bit, and might be time to call timeout.
Timeouts are good. You can recalibrate the offense, and being vulnerable, I think, just shows that you're human. But we're going to double down on just your humanness. So you ready to have a little fun? I like to
I,
do a
I
little
love
lightning round with our guests here. So
I love fun.
okay, pizza. On pizza, pineapple? Yes or no?
No way.
No, no
No,
pineapple.
that's a side dish. You don't put that on a pizza.
I don't know if it's karaoke or karaoke, so I'm just gonna go your favorite karaoke song.
Um, as a superintendent, I choose to delegate authority to somebody with more skills and talent than I have.
Oh, how apropos. Coffee or tea?
You know what? I'm gonna pick smoothie. I don't do either.
Smoothie it is.
Yep,
Yeah.
fruit smoothie. Stop by my office. I got a little smoothie bar. Come on, join me.
How about your biggest fear that's completely irrational?
My biggest fear, you know, I get excited about fear actually, which is
This is
kind
the
of a
guy
weird
that wears the no fear shirt
yeah.
still. They're both
I
dated.
remember those.
Yes,
I
you
do.
do. My good. Okay, I'm curious. Your favorite search tool?
I'm trying to I'm trying to figure that out again actually, because I used to go to Google. I think it was Yahoo back in the day that
Right.
I used, and now it's Google. But with some of the new AI tools, I'm rethinking how I look for information and how I can get better information. So a chat GPT, a Gemini, I have a system called Guardrails. All of them have some really interesting things, and I'm starting to rethink that maybe I should be using different search tools, and maybe I
Mm,
need to move away from, even though they've embedded Gemini into Google, it doesn't always automatically kick in. So I'm rethinking how I search now, and I think with generative AI tools, we need to maybe be reevaluating how we do look for information. So
taking notes. I'm taking notes. Cats or dogs?
dogs,
Okay. Your weirdest food combination?
probably cottage cheese straight out of a 5 pound tub bucket with some peaches dumped on top.
You are not normal.
Nope.
Morning person or night owl?
I can really do both, but I would probably tend to be more of a night person.
Most embarrassing song in your playlist right now?
I'm not embarrassed to say it. If you are a millennial and you don't have the Backstreet Boys in your playlist somewhere, I'm gonna something's wrong. Backstreet Nick Carter and he's my guy. He's my guy.
Salute. Salute to the Backstreet. Last question. If you could teleport anywhere right now, go.
I don't know where this location is. Maybe they'll because I think that sometimes superintendentship is a calling and it calls you. So I guess I'm listening, but um I would want to be transported to the most challenging school district in the country where I have an opportunity to help. That's where I would like to be, and that's the work I would wanna do.
There's the taproot, folks, right there. And that's the show. And if you're not thinking systematically about educational transformation after today's little jam session, right now you really missed the point. Dr. Horton just demonstrated that really effective educational leadership, it's not just inspirational. That will get you in the door, but it's implementational, right? You have to work, you got to work your program. So here's a real actionable framework. Share this episode with somebody that just needs to hear it. And if you're in education, I would study Southwest Metro. Look at where they're at right now and track to see where they're going. They have a very aggressive strategic plan that just makes sense. It's clear. It's robust. And if you're facing some of those institutional barriers, stop seeing problems and start seeing systems to actually redesign your system. So this is the show where we discover that the best leaders don't just dream of better outcomes. They engineer the conditions that make better outcomes inevitable. So keep systematizing, folks. Thanks again, Jeff.
Thank you.
Peace.